Hello and welcome to the Upside. I'm your host, Paul Santinello, where we talk about all the good things that happen in Long Meadow and beyond. And today, as I'm in my summer wear, we're kicking off the summer series with two of my favorite guests. Rob Rizzuto, who's the assistant managing editor at the Mass Live, Republican, whatever you guys want to call it. It's all yours. You're the king of that fiefdom right now. And international political consultant Tony Cignoli. Guys, welcome. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
We're on the cusp of the California primary next week, as well as some other primaries. We're going to talk about local politics, national politics, and because it seems it's probably one of the most fun things to talk about right now is the presidential race, because everything that was supposed to happen on the Republican side seems to be happening on the Democrat side, right? That we're going to have a contested convention, we're not going to know who the nominee is going in, and the Republicans kind of seem set by now, right? I mean, or set as of now.
He's got his 1237, that's it.
1237, but it seems like some people are coming in line, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely so. I think we're seeing a lot more of that right now. You're seeing standard bearers of the Republican Party, if not saying they love them, they are with them. You're getting everybody from John Sununu, who's outside the spectrum a little bit right now, one of the silver hairs, to a Mitch McConnell, making it really clear. I'm voting for him, he's the nominee, let's get together, let's make this happen. It's not like they're wildly ecstatic that this is the guy. On the other hand, they're coming around. And then the money. If all the rumors are true, Sheldon Adelson looks prepared to put a significant amount of money into a political action committee for Donald Trump. These guys hate each other. They're competitors.
Yep.
And certainly Trump is not the size of Adelson, but something has moved Adelson on his key issues to say, I'm going in this direction.
Can you just define him? So
Sure, Sheldon Adelson,
yeah.
major casino mogul, international developer, major player, gigantic in support of Israeli issues, or issues relative to Israel, huge philanthropist as well, and a Republican's Republican, a really conservative Republican. He's certainly not one of the Koch brothers. He's a lot more risque, I guess I would say that, and colorful, but a guy that does not like Donald Trump. They've duked it out. They've battled. They've had monstrous fights in the past on development and other things, and not just casino related, but in other ways. And yet, to see him moving in this direction, that's a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
He opens that political action committee probably with $100 million or more, and then the rest comes. And then the Donald's just $900 million away from the billion that he needs from the PAC.
And I think you and I are in the wrong business. Because if you open a PAC for $100 million, we're definitely in the wrong business.
Yeah, amen.
What do you think?
Well, looking at that, you got a question. Is it, similar interests that are drawing him to support Trump, or is it the fear of what a Hillary presidency might bring for his interests and his financial interests in particular? I mean, the positive being as much of a factor as the negative, if all things are equal, it begs the question. I mean, what do you think as far as that goes?
It's like Aristotle, that great line from Aristotle, the improbable impossibilities. And isn't that Trump in the first place, to be where he is right now?
It's the
but you
candidacy.
bring up a good point there, too, even with someone like Adelson. It may not be so much pro-Trump as anti-Hillary. That is something, too, of concern for Democrats as they go into a convention, because of the fact that normally questions on Israel, for example, would not be a major debate. They will be this time around, is what it sounds like. And I'm going, frankly, just what I'm reading right now from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, but what I'm hearing from players, going into, as Paul said, what it looks like, if it is not so much really a contested convention between Bernie and Xi, but a contested convention on issues. The Bernie people are able to, and look like they're going to have on the floor, a fight over a couple of key rules. They've already been able to knock off certain players from the Democratic Party platform who won't be able to participate now, the Cornel Wests, et cetera, and whatnot. On the flip side of that, they're talking about forcing a vote that, or in a debate over, does a state, the superdelegate thing, that a state must recognize proportionally, with delegates, in that vote. New Hampshire, for example, it must be in Bernie's column. He won New Hampshire, yet the superdelegates put it in hers. That battle's going to erupt. Who expected any of this stuff? And it's dry, and the average person doesn't care about this, but it's going to be rock'em sock'em. The people that do care about this, that whether it's dry or not, they're going to go in there and they're going to war over this stuff. So there is a degree of contested convention. You're right, and it doesn't look like Trump's is going to be. I think that's going to be show business. I really think that the RNC has an opportunity here to say, well, it is what it is, and let's go, because this guy drives the numbers. This could be good for us. We can raise some money off this thing.
And when you look at after the Massachusetts primary, a few of us in the Trump campaign were at a local establishment and met a few people from the Bernie campaign. And interestingly enough, the Western Mass coordinator was a classical grad.
Really? Okay.
Can't remember her name for the sake of life of me, but we started talking, right? Because she wanted to know why I was supporting Trump, and I
Yeah.
wanted to know why she was supporting Bernie. Out of 100% of looking at a circle, there was about 80% that was kind of similar. Seemed like people feel like they're getting screwed over by the government, right? They're being left behind. That could be either one of those two candidates, right? So when you look at least from my point of view,
Yeah.
that a lot of what she was talking about was similar things to what you might have heard in a Trump campaign
Right.
speech.
Yeah.
The difference might be the free college versus making America great again type of thing. But,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of similarities between those two supporters that don't support the Republican establishment or the Democrat establishment. So I don't know what that's going to end up after the Democrat convention, because I think that's going to be a pretty nasty fight. And I mean, everything they projected about the Republican convention being nasty, horrible, and the riots on the inside, not on the outside.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen in Philadelphia more than it is in Cleveland now. And I don't know where those supporters go. My question to you guys is, have Trump and Bernie created a movement that's bigger than the vote for themselves?
From what I've seen, I think they've capitalized off the sentiment that's been brewing in the country as long as I've been of voting age. It's that it's not about Democrat, it's not about Republican. It's about there's a problem with the system and our voices aren't heard. That feeling that, not that it's rigged, but that you're going to get screwed either way. So why bother? I feel like both sides, between Bernie and Trump, have, if you want to call it a protest candidacy, but they're the outsiders in relation to the political system. Hillary Clinton, maybe 50 years ago, was that person. She's not that person. She is the establishment candidate. So, like when you said you're at the bar and you're talking to the Bernie supporter, you're finding out.
No.
Sorry, I make the assumption that's, but you're getting down to the facts, and it's not even a matter of policy; it's a matter of principle and feeling and emotion and all these things that factor in, and you find out we're not all that dissimilar.
Yeah.
I think that's the feeling that's really pervasive throughout the electorate, and I think that bodes well for Donald Trump in a general election matchup versus Hillary Clinton. Even, I don't know, I see a lot of Martha Coakley and Hillary Clinton.
That lack of being able to really connect, not really getting the drift, not,
Yeah.
coming across as smart as she is.
Qualified,
Yeah.
intelligent,
Yeah.
the whole shebang, but not being able to, you push
Yeah.
it to the line, but being able to go that extra
Yeah.
step to say, I'm this candidate and this is who I've been purported to be, and you have that one-on-one conversation and they strike you. She's not striking folks like that
Not
from what I've
clicking.
seen.
Yeah, not clicking. When you think too, I know we've talked about this here before, the bully pulpit that Bernie Sanders has. Even as you mentioned, here we are sitting here before California. We don't know what's going to happen. The polls look close. Who knows what the bottom line is? California is a GOTV kind of a state, and it's a country unto itself. Anything could happen given the organization and the money she's got. But if it's close, or if he wins, and if he just does then well again in North Dakota, if he does well in Montana, and if he just holds his own in New Jersey, arguably he could be within maybe 200 votes of the number at that point. And if that's the case, I mean, in California, he loses and grabs 258 of those delegates, and he started adding up the other numbers, he comes close to 200. He's got an argument still to make. He can't win. Not with the numbers, but he's got an argument. And he's got this grand, gigantic movement that's there. And they're not backing away. They're not backing down. They want to go to the convention and they want to fight on platform committee issues. And take a look at what they've done with Wasserman in the last couple of weeks. I mean, she's on the ropes at this point, I think one of the toughest things I've had to do is speak to college classes in different places and explain to college classes where perhaps the students there are more in tune toward Bernie Sanders, obviously, and whatnot. I'm getting that as I'm talking to them and all. And to explain to them, yeah, gosh golly gee whiz, here we are at Franklin Pierce University, and you all in New Hampshire, and you all voted last week for, Bernie Sanders, and you won. But you don't get all the delegates. Explaining to them, super delegates, explain it. And you know what? I've had a difficult time trying to explain to these really smart young people. Yeah, wait a minute. No, it's not stacked. It's just these were the rules. I'm saying, God, I sound like that old guy now, trying to say, oh no, it's the way it is. We've got to play by these rules. I'm just saying, you're crazy. What are you talking about? And that anger that's there.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Yeah.
No, that's just it. The problem for those folks is it's the establishment. It's not Democrat, it's not Republican. It's saying this is how you've come up with the rules up till now. Well, that's unacceptable for us, and something needs to change.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fascinating and frightening part of an election season like this.
And Bernie's top guy was on Fox News this morning talking about, we're going to go to the convention, and those super delegates aren't technically bound yet. They can change their mind up until the time they vote. So they're going to work, and I don't mean this, they're going to work on them or work them over until they actually cast their votes at the convention. And so I don't think there's a give up there. Like you said, their plan is to go there and get some of those super delegates to change their mind. And his words were basically, just like the electorate, people aren't really kind of paying attention until you come up time for the vote. And so they have a strategy that it doesn't end. Before the convention, it's going to go until
Hillary Clinton, whatever happens, has got to woo them and win them over. And what's that factor that's still sitting out there we keep talking about every time we get together, especially us from Massachusetts? Elizabeth Warren, who still sits and watches and waits. Doug Schoen, major player in Bill Clinton's administration at one time, a major strategist, a guy a heck of a lot smarter than me, makes a case today in the Wall Street Journal about all the ifs that could still happen before the convention. And he's saying, I know it's supposed to be done. I know it's done, delegate count. But get away from the mathematical for a moment. And he touches on some of the things we're talking about here. And he actually makes a case for if Bernie does do well in California, holds his own in the other states that I just mentioned to finish this thing up and comes that close. And he's got this movement, he brings these floor fights and whatnot. Is there a moment and a possibility where Joe Biden somehow, and I think that's improbable. I mean, that's West Wing, that's House of Cards, that's drama, that's Hollywood. There's no way that's going to happen.
Right.
But look at all the things that we said that there were no way that was going to happen. Donald Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party. Holy smokes, Wow, so who knows? And his case was predicated on, it becomes Biden because of all these different issues that he brings up in his arguments. And this is a Clinton guy, former Clinton guy. And then he says, and then the obvious becomes the obvious. How do you win it? Biden, Warren. Biden and Elizabeth Warren. And he makes a phenomenal case for it. Enough so that the Journal said, well, let's give him the space and see where this flies. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you feel like Hillary's got a little bit of Martha Coakley in her and stuff. And she hasn't really done a great job in explaining her vision for the future. She's been part of an administration where she's talking about, pay inequality. Well, you were part of that where you could have had some influence on that. Where Bernie Sanders is on the outside saying we need to raise it up. Right? I mean, sometimes it's almost harder to run when your boss is, been in there for 8 years, because you got to be delicate balance of criticizing him, Obama's policies, and then criticizing your opponent. And Bernie's kind of seemed to take it on. He's not super, criticizing either one of Obama or Hillary really badly, but here's his vision. She doesn't have one. At least that's what I take. When you're talking about pay inequality, well, you were just part of the problem in a way, and that's what Bernie's really saying to people is that I'm going to go in there and change it. She can't. She's already been there. But when I asked about the movement, so if Bernie goes to, and same thing I thought with Trump too, that if Bernie goes to the convention, Bernie Sanders goes to the convention and says, okay, I lost. I want all my delegates. I want you guys to all vote for Hillary. His movement isn't. I don't think Donald Trump is part of the movement or the head of the movement, but I don't think he is the movement. And it's kind of like Tea Party-ish for the Democrat side, at least from my view, is that this is going to go on whether Bernie's there or not. Now, maybe 50% of them say yes, we're going to do the good Democrat Party thing, and we're going to vote for Hillary. The other part of it is that's the toss-up. How many of those people are just going to say no? That's not what we want. And then there's another guy on the other side saying it is a rigged system. Coming to Bernie's defense a little bit, right? It is rigged, So how many of those people are going to say, yeah, that guy's right too? We want that outsider. I don't know where that, and it's kind of odd that normally it's the Republicans that convert over to everything converts over to the Democrat side. There's a little bit different this time. I don't know what it is, but it just seems you got Marco Rubio coming out saying he's, like you talked about, he's there, he's in Trump's campaign, he's going to release his delegates to him. I mean, as soon as Ted Cruz does that, right, the party's kind of unified at that point, and they're going forward. I don't know.
Then we just wait on the bushes and see what happens then.
But how does she recover from that at the convention? I mean, because it seems like it's going to be a pretty good fight there.
Between Trump and Hillary?
No, I mean at the Democrat convention.
Okay,
I think, it's not going to be 68 Chicago, I don't think. But there seems to be it's going to be a pretty good fight.
It is. There's some jump ball here. It's up in the air. The Hillary people have got to be nervous about what happens. It's not tangible, and they like things that are tangible, planned out, and where you can execute a plan with extreme prejudice, and it's done. And they're not able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, just going right back to what you were saying about Hillary Clinton. Not being able to make her point deliver her message, kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, I've talked to people, even in the past week over Memorial Day, that aren't necessarily, it's not even rigid ideological politics to them about why they're considering supporting Donald Trump. I've talked to people that don't like him, they think he's abrasive. There's people that really just don't like him at all, not even a matter of policy, back to that again. But because Hillary Clinton has done either a poor job or very little in terms of communicating to the electorate that this is the kind of president that I dream to be. This is my vision for the future, and this is how it's going to be better for you and your children.
Yep.
They're not seeing that. So what they're seeing is the other guy, and they're saying, well, it's a broken system, or it's a shot in the dark, and let's give him a chance.
And I just saw something, yesterday there was some reports about her with a new strategy, which is her fourth strategy to run the campaign, whatever it is. And it very much is, like you mentioned, Martha Coakley, they're very reminiscent of that we don't know where we're going, so we got to keep changing our plane to kind of figure out where it's going to head and stuff. And I don't know how that plays out. One thing is, because I have this argument with my kids, because a couple of them aren't really big fans of Donald Trump's, okay? He is abrasive. I don't think people think he is. He is. I mean, that's just how he's been his whole life and whatever. But when someone says he's not a smart guy, he's an idiot, he's a dummy, and I said, well, first of all, put the political or the business success on the side, because he's had success and failures, but probably more success than failures, obviously. He is really, in some ways, the smartest guy in the room right now, because he beat some of the most seasoned Republican candidates, and he beat them at their own game. He went live with them. Yeah. I haven't seen a guy who, on the Republican side, who's not afraid to go on The View, on NBC, the Today Show, Good Morning America, every day calling up and getting on. There hasn't been a Republican that's done that, that's actually reached out to people in the enemy camp, so to speak, and then goes out and accuses the media of beating them up, and then still gets back on their shows with them. I don't think that's a dummy.
Love that piece you
that's not a stupid guy. He's got something in control there.
Yeah.
And I think that is George Bushism of the misunderestimation of Donald Trump and his political power has been phenomenal in this election. I think every Republican candidate dismissed him, and I think it's wrong if Hillary's campaign is going to dismiss him too, because he's thrown some of those shots right back at him.
I think that the Clinton campaign at Indiana, when Indiana happened, and I'm sorry, better yet, Pennsylvania. When Trump won Pennsylvania, that would be the one I would look at. When you say the danger of dismissing him, I think when he won Pennsylvania, and they looked at the fact that a Republican won every county in Pennsylvania, and then when you look at the demographics too, some of the numbers may sound small, and they may be off by a number or two, but 27% Hispanic women, 28% Hispanic Latino across the board, 30% of African American in Pennsylvania. And he won all those counties. At that moment, knowing a couple of people that are advising her, they stopped and they said, we prepare now for Donald Trump. Forget everything else. We got a Bernie problem. We got a convention problem. We got a millennial problem. We've got all these other issues and problems, but we've got to prepare for Trump. And what have we seen from Pennsylvania to now in all of these national polls? What else has changed? That great argument that Hillary Clinton had, that I can beat him, Bernie can't. Well, if you look at today's polls, Bernie could, it looks like, if it was a one-on-one, but that's not probably going to happen. And gosh, golly, you're not. You're actually trailing him all of a sudden. You, Hillary, are now behind Donald Trump. So, yeah, they've got to be planning that. And I think when Pennsylvania, that's when they said, oh, God, this is for real. Yeah, it took a while probably for a lot of people to do that, but I think that's there.
The stronger general election candidate, like what you see with the polling at this point, to bring it back to our last gubernatorial race, I remember the polling. Coakley was the preferred candidate, if you will, but Steve Grossman was still in it.
Yes.
And there was indications that he would have fared much better against Charlie Baker than Martha Coakley did.
Oh gosh.
And I think back to that, and that's why when I make the comparison between Martha Coakley at the state level as gubernatorial candidate and Hillary Clinton at the national level, it's like somebody's not wanting to believe something they're reading in their own polling. It's there, but don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But
and a lot of times it's a party's failure and whatnot. The party plays the party game and doesn't play the game of, well, who could we really win with right now?
Yeah.
So who knows?
So Two questions for each side of it. Do you think that, are you two, because you've been much more politically involved, are you surprised by Donald Trump's work ethic and the way that he gets his message out to his people?
I'm not surprised by that. I think that's what I'd expect for him. I mean, like him or hate him, he's a guy who built an empire. So like you said, he's not an idiot. You might not like him, you might very passionately feel against him, but there's no denying it. He's a very smart man. And you don't get that far without having that kind of passion.
That drive to want to do it, to do the art of the deal and to work and all that. That's what the guy does. This is what he digs. What is surprising, look at the difference in this short amount of time between Mitt Romney, a really rich guy, and Donald Trump, a really rich guy. Romney's team did what was perfunctory. Hide it if you can. Play it down if you can. Talk about driving the station wagon across America. Yeah, right. And at the same time, not talking about the elevator for the 16 cars at the house in California or whatever. They had to hide all that. Trump went in the opposite direction. Is this by the seat of the pants, Donald Trump, or is this a really smart guy who said, that ain't gonna work for that guy. I'm gonna do the exact opposite. I'm gonna be interesting. I'm gonna fly in the face. This guy, this is out of Little Orphan Annie. He's Daddy Warbucks, basically. He's running a campaign out of Trump Tower. It's in a campground, which is New York a little while ago. It's just astonishing what's happening outside Trump Tower. There are international media vehicles there around the clock.
Yeah.
London, Tokyo, etc. It's Daddy Warbucks. He flies in, lands on top, or comes in. It's just amazing. You used to hide that kind of stuff, the wealth, the rest. It's a completely unconventional campaign. So am I surprised? Yeah, only because no one else has ever been able to do this. And take a look at numbers right now. At the time of the Indiana win, he had as many Republican votes and supporters as Mitt Romney did at the final. Who are all these new people that are coming in here?
Right.
And a lot of them are independents. When you listen to really smart fellows like Haley Barbour and even Lindsey Graham, thinking back 8 years ago when Obama was elected, and they said, our party's got to change. Haley Barbour about a week ago said, we knew we had to change. I thought that meant bringing in more Hispanic Latinos, I thought it meant the Marco Rubios of the world. Who knew that it would be Donald Trump? But it's Donald Trump. It's all of a sudden awoken a huge group of folks who either haven't been involved or have been disengaged because of what Rob said really well before. It is as simple as, I'm tired of the parties, I'm tired of the bull, I'm tired of the promises. You're not worried about me, but maybe this crazy guy will. And you know what? I'm going to go crash and burn with him. There's a great movie called The Associate, Whoopi Goldberg, and there's a cameo of Donald Trump in it, where he comes in and Whoopi's a financial advisor, and Donald's regular, standard bearer kind of financial guy is in the room waiting to get a seat at a luncheon table. Donald comes in, and the guy says, "Oh, hang on, we'll have a table in about 30 minutes." And Donald says, "No, I'm going to go with Whoopi, because." And the guy goes, "Well, she's going to crash and burn. She's not going to do well as a financial." And then Donald says, "You know what? I think I'd rather crash and burn right now and have some fun with that than hang out with you and wait here in line." Nobody wants to wait in line anymore. There's that piece of it. People are angry. Things need to be addressed. Simple things that should be simple, that are so important. The VA issues, things like that. Whatever anyone thinks over the last few days of Donald Trump on the veterans, did he give the money in time or not, the VA issue itself, there's Republicans like John McCain that don't disagree with Donald Trump, who are saying, you're right, and God bless the president. But yeah, for 8 years, there's been promises to fix that. There literally are people dying. Veterans are dying, waiting for care. And then you got a guy at the head of the VA who makes a comment like that. Can you imagine if that was Donald Trump's head of the VA? That guy was gone right then. Donald would probably walk in with a couple of guys, take him out, throw him out, or worse, I don't know. But yeah, there's that anger that's out there. And I have never seen this level of anger. Average, regular folks who don't make a lot of noise. The quiet people who pay the mortgage, who struggle to get ahead. And what's stunning to me is that they're independents and Republicans, and there are even some Democrats. I have strong Democratic friends who will vote Democrat on the line, and they're going to vote for Donald Trump. And I'm like, you're kidding. And I'll say to them, why? Just because. All the rest of this has not worked. I'm going to go crash and burn. Maybe we'll crash and burn. Maybe we'll soar. I don't know. But that's the mindset. Let's go take the chance. Let's roll the dice.
With a guy who doesn't need the job.
No, a guy who doesn't need the job. We're going to go with the casino guy. We're going to go roll the dice with the casino guy.
So the next one is, was there a message with the Big Mac and French fries as you clinch your Republican nomination. Was that the everyman message, or was that just I love Big Macs? I mean, I saw that and I said, there's got to be something more to this than Donald liking Big
What do
Macs
you
and
think on
fries.
that? That's really more.
I think he just knows how to play every marketing angle that there possibly is and
Yep.
whatnot. It's subliminal seduction, or that's literally what it is. If you've got a Coke there on TV, somebody wants it. It's Mad Men. It's promotional stuff. It's marketing and whatnot.
As you're flying on your private jet with
Absolutely.
your Big
Yeah.
Mac and your fries, right?
He's just like me.
Just like the guy eating right.
Yeah, he's just like me. I just drove over my 1988 Ford F-150 after laying roofs all day long. I'm having my Big Mac, and
Yep.
me and the Donald, we're the same kind of guy.
Yep.
Bang. Yeah.
Could Hillary pull that off?
No. I'm sorry. God bless her. No.
Right.
Probably
So,
not.
so that's
I
what
think
I'm
of the
saying.
Chipotle thing from
Yeah.
earlier this
Exactly.
year.
But
Yeah,
the pictures
yeah.
of him on his private jet having his Big Mac and French
Yeah.
fries, and it plays.
It does, yeah.
What I want to know is how did he keep it warm from the time it got out of that drive-through out of the jet?
I like that.
Because I can't even get it home.
Yeah. So I want to take one step away from the national scene and talk in Massachusetts. Right. We have a sitting governor who's a Republican, who has come out and said, "I will not vote for Donald Trump." To me, it's got to be probably one of the. Now I get it. He might not like him. His boy lost, right? He was with Chris Christie and stuff. I get that. But to come out and say I will not vote for him, even if he wins the nomination, is that stupid? And I have to use that word because there's no other way. I can't couch that. I mean, it's not. Is it silly? But is that stupid of a sitting governor who technically heads the party, who just had we had an inner fight within the Republican Party to take control, and the governor did win control to have his people put in place and his platform put in place. Is that then stupid to piss off I can say that on TV, right? To torque off the rest of your constituents on the Republican side? I understand it might play with Democrats, but is that a good move, dumb move? And why would you do that?
Well, he is the most popular governor in the nation.
Right.
Think about that. But
I understand that. So maybe there's some head swell in there that says I can get away with what I want to get away with, and I'm more popular than Donald Trump.
He could be. Is it thinking about re-election? Is it thinking about a state that's supposedly democratic, or if you actually really look at it, is now an independent state? Does this play in Peoria? Is it safe? I'll tell you one thing, without speaking to insider and having again recently polled and done some significant polling, this. The 413 or 508 across to the 413, if he is thinking that it helps him across the board, Worcester West, it does not. Trump is significant, Worcester West. I think that some of us will be surprised by the ultimate numbers in November, Worcester West and whatnot. So does that play? Maybe not. I think this is a case of Bill Weld, what a Freudian, right? Sorry. I think this is a case of Baker being Baker and saying, I'm going to be pure, and I'm going to stay the course, and I'm not going to fly with this guy. How does it play with his party overall, and how does it play with independence is going to be the bigger question for him. That would be, I think, what he looks at in 2 years down the road.
I think, looking down the line for him, I think if he would have said, I'm supporting Donald Trump because he's the party's nominee and it's the right thing to do politically speaking, I feel like that could have damaged him politically because he has the persona of being... you might not agree with him, but he's going to take a stand. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's a lot of why he won the election. He's saying, look, I can't vote for any of these people. So I'm going to figure it out on my own, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to dock the question. And when he says that, a lot of people, even if they don't agree with him, say, there's a guy who stands by his convictions. Even if I don't agree with him, I can respect it.
He's the same guy who said, the voters of Massachusetts did not elect me to get involved in presidential politics. I won't endorse a candidate who then endorsed Chris Christie, right? And then said, I won't vote for the Republican. So if he's a man of principle, he violated his own principles. And that's what I'm saying.
It was the Christie thing that was more out of character. If anything, it might have been more of a mistake.
Right, and I understood when he first got elected.
That had to be a last minute favor, huh?
Or something, yeah.
Please,
how do you,
please.
Yeah, big time please and whatnot. Yeah, well said, Rob.
So now the next question, right, because we had about 3 minutes left, is does Donald Trump have coattails? Because we have always been told in Massachusetts presidential elections are terrible for Republicans because of you run it in the gubernatorial years.
Yeah.
But will he have coattails across the country?
I'll let you go first.
Gosh, that's one I hate to pun it, but it's so hard to say because it's like what you said. He's not seen as a Republican.
Right.
He's the Republican candidate, but for a lot of the
And
folks
that's why
that
I'm
I've-
asking, because he is and he isn't. He's a
Yeah,
Republican
will
nominee,
it
but
trickle
he's not-
down to
right.
local Republican candidates? Perhaps I think to some degree, because that's how people's minds will work. But I question if that'll be kind of the pervasive overall conclusion. What do you
Look
think?
at reality right now. The thought was that he was going to hurt everybody down ticket.
Right.
The absolute fact right now, the absolute truth, is that by the Donald tying things up the way that he has to this point, he's actually helped the down ticket, because the down tickets have been able to raise money that normally goes to presidential. U.S. Senate candidates, incumbents, congressional and whatnot, they've been able to tap dollars that weren't going to Donald Trump, because nobody had to contribute to Donald
Right.
Trump. And that all of a sudden, as he started to whittle away all the other candidates, stopped going to Cruz and Bush and the rest. There's actually a case that's been made for that. A couple of U.S. Senate candidates and incumbents on the Republican side have said that their campaigns benefited because they were able to get a bigger amount of money or a bigger donation from those big donors out there, because I don't have to write one to Donald Trump just yet. I have to write something to the party later on, probably. But right now, yeah, okay, I'll write that out for you in your Senate campaign or House campaign.
Okay. And that's what I was thinking, it's not, like you said, it's not that traditional, here's the Republican, Jeb Bush, and I'm just throwing a name out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that he's in the party, been in the party forever, and,
Yeah.
and then we're going to just go right down the ticket. It's, who knows, right? I mean, if he has a lot of people cross the ballot from the Democrat or Independent side, those
Right.
people could be voting for the Democrat governor
Absolutely.
or whatever that you weren't thinking about
This is
before.
the year of jump ball. There are no rules. Anything could happen. It's completely reliant on a good candidate and a good campaign to make it happen, whether they're a D or an R.
Yep. Okay. And guys, I want to thank you for coming on. We're out of time on this show, but we'll have them back, and we're going to talk more as we progress, especially in the fall. One thing is, we're probably not going to talk politics. September 8th is a primary in the state of Massachusetts, and you have to vote. It's a Thursday, not a Tuesday, so keep that in mind as we talk about politics, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Upside. Thanks again for coming in, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Paul.
Excellent. Huh?
Thank you.